Hello everyone, it's David again with Season 2, Episode 22, The Fall of Night. And if you all remember Episode 22, that means we are at the end of Season 2. Yay! So next time I see you, it will be Season 3. But anyways, starts off with practicing fighter combats with fighter versus fighter. And then we zip on in, and Lanier and Veer commiserate over their respective jobs. And it seems that they have a lot in common. We zip on down, and the Drazi and Pakhmara state the Centauri are invading them, their territories. And so they're a little bit miffed, wondering what Babylon 5 can do to help. And as they're talking and finishing up, we cue the entrance. We have a couple actors here to highlight. Roy Dotrice, who plays Frederick Lance. He was born 26 May 1923, passed away 16 October 2017, age of 94. He has the record for a single act play. Basically, he acts for 2.5 hours straight by himself. There are no co-actors or actresses. It's him and him alone. So he did that for quite some time, was very famous, got tons of awards for it. And we have John Vickery as Mr. Wells, born 4 November 1950. He's from Alameda, California, and you will remember him as Mr. Neroon. So he gets to take off the makeup and the bone from the back of his head and gets to play a member of Night Watch. Zips on in, and Sheridan is trying to talk to Londo and screams at him, "What the hell do you think, or who the hell do you think you are? Or what the hell do you think you're doing?" That's why I write these things down so I don't forget them, and here I did, forgetting it. And Londo quips back at him, that, your authority ends at B5, Captain. Do not get delusions of grandeur. You will not survive them. Now, to be honest, how do I want to say this? Londo is basically saying the Centauri just want a buffer zone. And it's like Sheridan says, where does this buffer zone end? Where, draw a line on the map where things are supposed to end. In the 90s Yugoslavia wars, you have a lot of that still continuing to this day. And even in modern day, we have Crimea. With Russia, it's like you want to sit down with Russia and say, look, where do you guys want to draw the map? We realize Crimea was your territory for 300 years. It was later moved over by Khrushchev to be administered by the Ukraine. But, you guys signed a treaty that gave them the rights to Crimea. So why, when is this going to end? One of the biggest complaints we Americans have against our European friends and allies even is that, you guys sit there and you fight over the same damn territory for centuries. For centuries. I was reading about Yugoslavia, Kosovo. The Serbs, I believe, were fighting over territory that, they're only 10% of the population, but they're fighting over a battleground that took place in like the 800s. We're talking 1,300 years ago. And they're still fighting over the same damn piece of ground. It's like, sit down with the damn map, draw out where the borders are, and stop dragging everybody else down into your mess. And the Centauri are put in that kind of a position. Now, unbeknownst to everybody, except for maybe Sheridan and Delenn getting kind of some inklings, Kosh probably almost certainly knows, because he was told by Valen / Sinclair, that the Centauri are basically wanting to dominate the whole galaxy. And that idea was put in their heads by the shadows. We can help you take over everything. You know, like a lot of, Hitler certainly was one of people who just want to control the entire earth, just take it all for themselves. At least that's my opinion. Now, if you guys have a different opinion, please put it down in the summer section down, or in the comment section down below. I don't mind being called out by people saying, hey, it's a lot more complicated than what you've, spelled it out to be. But to me, it seems kind of silly to fight over the same piece of land. But here's the Centauri. They're going back to the Narn that they just conquered 150 years ago. It's like, guys lost a lot of blood, sweat, and tears over that piece of territory to be forced out, and now you want to come back in and occupy this like, what makes you think the Narns are going to react any differently than they did the previous time you tried to conquer them? But at any rate, Sheridan and Garibaldi are, commiserating about, what on earth is going on with Londo. And Garibaldi said he was a pain in the butt, but he was our pain in the butt. Harkens back to the old, he was a SOB, but he's our SOB. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, regarding Nicaraguan President Somoza. And by the way, that quote has been used and changed slightly to fit the times and the situation, gone back over 100 years on that. So I guess with Garibaldi's quote now, it goes forward 200 years. We have an Earth Force ship jumps in, and Mr. Lance from the Ministry of Peace. That should be a red flag to anybody. Ministry of Peace, that they're, especially with the government agency, that they're probably dedicated to anything but peace. But it sounds great for the PR, so I guess that's okay. Pilot is talking to Lieutenant Keffer about ghosts in hyperspace near Sector 14, which would be the same sector that Babylon 4 was stolen from. So it makes you wonder if the shadows are doing something in Sector 14 to try and affect where Babylon 4 comes in and out. Makes you wonder. All of a sudden, a jump point opens in Sector 39, and a Narn heavy cruiser, the Zadok, comes out, and they need help because they're low on fuel, they're low on supplies, and they've got lots of wounded. We zip on in, and Mr. Wells, aka Naroon, goes in and offers to help advance Ivanova's career if she joins Night Watch, which we all know Ivanova is not about to join any sort of political organization. She's going to do things her way. We zip on in, and Sheridan tells Jakar about the cruiser and offers them sanctuary. We zip on in, and Mr. Wells, a.k.a. Naroon, grills Zach Allen about his lack of reports. So that should be a really big clue to everybody that these people are, clamping down. They're wanting to know who's on our side and who's on the other side. And unfortunately, the shop owner that they were talking about ends up at the very last scene getting his shop taken away from him due to acts of sedition by order of Night Watch. So, pilot gives Lieutenant Keffer his readout, which we all know he finds his shadow vessel. And towards the end, unfortunately, Lieutenant Keffer pays the ultimate price for finding the shadow vessel, but he manages to, jettison his black box, for lack of a better term, and so they have that information, and we will see in later episodes how that comes to play out. Mr. Lance informs Sheridan and Ivanova that he's going to sign a non-aggression treaty with the Centauri. We will know peace in our time, he exclaims. Well, thank you, Neville Chamberlain. Because if you remember, he said the same thing about Adolf Hitler during I believe it was the Munich Agreement, if my history, World War II history hasn't failed me. Ivanova says it's going to be 22.60 in a week, and she gives Sheridan some shrapnel from the Black Star, which it must be a military thing. If any of you in the military can let me know, because I know when my brother-in-law retired from the Navy after 21 years, he was actually, the submarine that he served on at one point was being scrapped, and somehow his commanding officer got a chunk of the submarine itself and gave it to my brother-in-law as a present for his retirement, which my brother-in-law, of course, was very taken aback by and was extremely happy. Good for all of you who like CGI stuff here, especially CGI battles. Okay, here's a good one. Londo comes in on the comms and that he's aware of the Narn cruiser, and of course, as that happens, a Centauri battle cruiser jumps into B5 space. Now, here's a question I'd like to know. Why on earth, if you're jumping into, and you've got Babylon 5, which you know has Star Furies, and you've got a Narn cruiser, which you don't know whether or not they also have fighters, why would the Narn heavy cruiser jump into Babylon space and not dispense its fighters? Because they have this big old battle and not one Centauri fighter is to be had. Can anyone explain that logic to me? I don't get it. Of course, I'm not military inclined or have ever been in the military, so I probably wouldn't get it. We zip on in, and one pylon is ripped off of B5, and he's ordered time on target by Sheridan, which I had to look that one up, and it's basically where you time all of your ordnance to arrive on one specific point at a short time period, so that you get maximum destructive effect and you minimize your enemy deducing where your artillery and stuff is all being placed so they can launch a counter barrage. Had to look that one up. That's a wonderful thing, too, about the internet, man. My problem is when I get on Wikipedia on something like that, I end up opening about 60 different tabs because I get on one, I click the hyperlink, get on something totally different, and by the time I'm done, I've gone from, 1950s America to, the sun and outer orbit of the galactic core. If any of you have the same problem, let me know. Anyway, Sheridan ends up winning the battle, but kind of losing, I don't want to say losing the war, but he ends up having to pay a price where he's supposed to apologize. Well, a couple of Centauri, very suspicious looking, get on a tube right when Sheridan's going to go to the Peace Park, I think it is, on the Babylon 5, to make this grand apology to the Centauri for blowing up their ship. Well, as we all know, a bomb was placed and Sheridan is forced to jump. Well, eventually gravity's going to catch up with him and he's going to smack the ground unless someone can come up and save him. Well, as we all know, Kosh opens up his encounter suit and saves Captain Sheridan. Yay! Another question that's often been asked is when Londo is queried and he says, I saw nothing. Does that mean he saw nothing of import, like this big ball of light to get Sheridan? Or because everybody else saw an angel from their cultural history, but Malari says he saw nothing. So does that mean the Centauri have never been manipulated like the other species? Which also Delenn gets into a little bit with Sheridan. Sheridan's like, hey, are they manipulating us over the millions of years? And Delenn says, well, that's kind of a matter of perspective. Well, whose perspective? So I guess the question is, have the Centauri not been manipulated by the Vorlons? Have the Shadows been keeping them at bay and away from the Centauri territory? Because remember, there used to be rules to this game, but who knows? One side or the other decided they were going to go out and their way was the only way, as we all find out later. At any rate, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And I hope to see all very soon. And I hope you all have a good rest of your day. See you on Season 3, Point of No Return.